So, you got a big interview coming up and you want to make sure that you knock it out the park. In today's video, I'm going to show you the top 3 ways to dominate your interview so that way you can get the job. What's going on, guys? It's Josiah, your success consultant, and in today's video, I'm going to give you the top 3 things that you need to do to dominate your interview. So as always, make sure to subscribe. So in today's video, I'm not going to be giving you the run-of-the-mill stuff. Oh yeah, show up to your interview with a suit and tie on. Oh yeah, show up to the interview ready to shake somebody's hand. Listen, you can Google that crap anywhere, okay? In today's video, I want to show you the top 3 advanced tactics that you really need to focus on in order to stand out from the competition, okay? You must understand this. If you go into an interview with the same energy as everybody else, the same, responses as everybody else, the same type of behavior and mannerisms as everybody else, you're not getting a job. Especially as a black man in America, you're not going to get the job. As I've always said this, and I'm keeping it 100, in order for you to be successful, you're going to have to be 10 times stronger than the competition. And that's what we're going to talk about in today's video. So the first way to be 10 times stronger than the competition is to practice your questions until it becomes natural. Okay? Practice until it's natural. Okay? I'm going to put that right there for you. Now, what do I mean by this? Okay, don't already say, oh yeah, I know that. Just be patient. When we're talking about interview questions, right? There's 2 sets of interview questions. So you've got standard interview questions, and then you've got technical interview questions. And for those of you guys that are really applying for a job where you're trying to make more money than ever before, this is where this really matters, okay? So in every interview, you've got a set of general questions. Okay, tell me what you know about the company. Why do you want to work here? What are your top strengths? What are your weaknesses, etc., etc., right? Those are general questions. But then in a job that's really going to pay you well, they're going to come with industry-specific questions. So let's say right now you're a programmer. At the interview, they might ask you to go on the whiteboard and program a series of code to be able to prove that you know how to make something happen, right? Maybe you're at another job interview and maybe they're asking you a certain question about project management if you want to be a project manager. Whatever position you're trying to apply for, chances are, if it's a position really worth getting, is going to be a hybrid of general and industry specific questions. So what you want to be able to do is this, okay? You want to develop for yourself a sheet of paper, okay? You want to have this sheet of paper, and then you want to have general, and then you want to have industry questions, and start writing out what these questions typically are, okay? Now, for the clients that I work with more exclusively, I've been able to work with them directly, helping multiple clients get $10,000 raises and beyond. And one of the ways that I'm able to do this is by taking the skill set that people already have and just showing them how to be able to market it better. There's so many people that feel like they got to go back to college, they must get a certification, they got to do this and they got to do that, when in actuality, some of the best jobs in your positions are waiting for you right now. It's just a matter of you marketing yourself a lot better to be the right person to qualify as a successful candidate, okay? So write down a list of all the general questions that you're likely to get on an interview. And I just shared with you a handful, right? So you need to take these questions and just write them down and then start practicing them, okay? What's going to be your answer when the interviewer asks you, what do you know about the company? The last thing that you want to do is sit there looking stupid and saying, oh, well, I don't know anything about the company. I just want a job. obviously you're not going to get the job. If you apply to any company that matters, they're going to be asking you to give them very specific details about the company that maybe the average person wouldn't know, right? So if I'm you, one of the things that I'm going to do just on the strength of that question alone is maybe I'm going to start researching things about the company. Maybe I could just start pulling some stuff off of Wikipedia. But if I'm really trying to change the game, maybe one of the things that I'm going to do is I'm going to start reaching out to a few select employees that already work at the company through LinkedIn, right? That allows you to connect with different employees. And you can ask them questions about how they enjoy their job. So I might show up at an interview and a person might ask me, well, what do you think about working at Google? And I might, give them, a full rundown of, well, I know that Google was started in this year. I know that the, founders of Google were, Sergey Brin and Larry Page and all these different things. And I'm going to start showing maybe some of the products that Google's currently using today. But then, right in the midst of answering that question, I'm going to slip something in that most people couldn't give the answer to, right? And I'm going to say, oh, and by the way, I was reaching out to the software developer that works in the, Googleplex office. And one of the things that he found really interesting was this. And it just turns out that I'm really interested in that too. Then a person would step back and be like, whoa, okay. They went above and beyond just simply Googling something or just knowing what's obvious that's out there. There's a person that went the extra mile to go and find out the information that 99% of the other applicants for this job have no idea about. And because of the fact they were willing to go that extra mile, that shows me a great characteristic in them. That might be the reason why I give them the job. Okay. And so instead of just winging it, freestyling it like most people do at an interview, you want to already write out all of the questions long before the interview takes place. So long before the interview takes place, I know exactly the type of general questions I'm going to be getting. I know exactly the industry specific questions that I'm going to be getting. And I have practiced and rehearsed these questions so many times that as soon as I walk into the interview, they're going to be thinking I'm standing in an interview with a cheat sheet. They're going to be thinking that I've already had somebody that works at the company tell me exactly what the person's going to say. Because there's only so many different variations of questions that you're going to get on an interview. See, when you go through this exercise, you're going to realize that of the many different types of questions that can come, many of those questions feed off of one another, right? So I'll give you another prime example. If a person asks you at an interview, what are your weaknesses? Please don't say, oh, I have none, right? Because again, that's going to be another deal breaker when somebody's going to throw you out of the company. When people are asking you about strengths and weaknesses, that oftentimes is going to lead to a follow-up question where they may ask, okay, so tell me about a time using one of your weaknesses that you encountered a problem at a previous job. What did you do about it, and how were you able to get over the hump? And in that instance, you need to have an answer prepared. You don't want to just feel totally off guard. You don't want to feel like you're just totally blindsided, because if you cannot give a swift response, it's showing that you're unprepared, you're untrained, you don't have the knowledge, right? And you don't have the right skill and experience that they are looking for. These are the judgments that the interviewer will make based upon your performance in that interview. And you might be the right person for the job, but just simply because of the fact that you haven't properly prepared, you're not going to get the position. And as one of my previous teachers, Miss Alexander, would say, proper preparation prevents poor performance. If you want to have high performance on the interview, you got to be properly prepared. All right. So practice your questions on both sides, not just one. Practice it until it's natural. Okay. Now, to that, you know how you know that you practice it until it's natural? And one of the things that you need to do to make sure that you've practiced it until it's natural, you need to go through what is called a mock interview. Okay. Go through a mock interview. A mock interview is a test interview that you could use with any person to prepare you for the real live interview to come. Okay? So maybe, okay, it's your spouse. Hey, babe, I'm applying for this job. I need to make sure I got this interview down. Can you pretend that you're the interviewer and I'm going to be the person that's answering the questions? Okay? And you can give them a list of the questions that you've already written out since you've been taking notes on my video. Just give them a list of the questions that you've already been practicing for, and then just have them go through the sequence of asking it to you in random order, and let's see how you respond to it. Okay? And then as you go through that mock interview, you'll be able to see where are your high points, what questions are you answering well, and which ones need a little bit more refinement and improvement. Okay? Super important. Any person that I know that has worked for a company and they were making six figures at a job, they know what a mock interview is. And they know what it is because they've done it. They do it to get them the best paid positions they possibly can afford to get. Okay? So, second to the first point, you need to focus on perfecting your transitions. Okay? Again, if you guys were cutting on this video because you wanted me to tell you about, what type of suit to wear and, what color your belt should be and, how to make sure that you say, hi, how are you? You're going to be sorely disappointed because I'm already coming into this video with the assumption that you have certain fundamental understandings of how you should be looking at an interview, that by the time we get here, now we're talking about the big leagues, okay? I'm trying to train you to be in the big leagues. I'm trying to make you become an all-star. So the second thing that you need to do is you need to perfect your transitions as you go from one question to the next. Okay, so here, what do I mean when I say perfect your transitions? Okay, I know a lot about this because when I worked in corporate America, I was a recruitment manager for one of the largest companies in the world. Okay, I was directly responsible for interviewing a ton of candidates and hiring them for well-paying positions in really solid corporate jobs. Okay, and so I can tell you, based upon a wealth of information, one of the best things that helps you stand out in an interview is not just your technical skills, it's your soft skills. And one of the best ways that you can display your soft skills, your communication skills, is to perfect your transitions between statements and questions and answers. Here's an example. Let's say that I ask you, okay, Tony, tell me about a time where you took one of your strengths and you taught it to somebody else in the company. What happened? What was the end result? You could look at me and be like, man. And then you do that little awkward smile because you don't know the answer to it. And you try to hurry up and pull something out of your behind to come up with it. And you're like, man, that's an interesting question. Yeah. I've never been asked that before. Yeah. And meanwhile, the interviewer is like, okay, let me check this dude off the list. He's not ready for this, right? To have a perfect transition from that question to your answer, here's what it should look like. So again, Tony, can you tell me about a time that you've leveraged one of your strengths? You've trained it to maybe one of the coworkers that was a part of your team. What was the outcome that came from it? I could say, hey, great question, Jim. One of the top strengths that I have exercised or displayed in a professional environment is the gift of organization. And in this company that I was working for, I noticed that the lack of organization that we had as a part of this project, it was slowing down our performance by about 30%. And what I did was I just used a few of the, winning ideas that I've had. Maybe you have a certain principle, a certain mantra that you live by to keep things organized. And as I shared my mantra and the approach on how I organize things across the team, within about 5 to 6 weeks' time after I was training my teammates about how to be superbly organized, we actually saw a 10% improvement in our revenue. Okay? And so what you're doing there is immediately from the time a person has thrown out a question to you, you're quick on the draw. And you don't necessarily have to have an immediate response, but you should have an immediate reaction in a way that makes it seem like you were prepared and confident in order to give a response. So you're not responding by starting off and saying, uh, um, the Jeopardy music shouldn't be playing as a person has asked you the question. You can just hurry up and give a filler statement by saying, hey, great question, Jim. Yeah, so there was this one time where, and as you're speaking through that, you're actually trying to recall your memory at the time that you're throwing that out there to an instance, but the person would never know it because you've let your filler words carry you over until you've actually thought about saying what you have to say. Put your own style on it, okay? I know what works for me. I know my own filler statements. You got to be able to find and develop yours. And that's the reason why you got to practice these questions, okay? Some of you guys might say, hey, that was funny. I was just thinking about that just yesterday. Or, great question. So what happened in this instance was, or for some of you guys, you might say, great question, and you might repeat the question that they gave to you as a part of the answer that you gave to them. So you might say, great question. One of the primary times where I leveraged my strength and gave it to members of the organization was when this, and you give yourself more filler time to be able to answer the question effectively by using these tactics. It may seem like it's not a big deal, but I'm telling you, as someone that did this professionally, and I was very good at what I did, when you walk into an interview and you seem nervous, you seem ill-prepared, you seem as though every question is a puzzling question, it gives a very resounding message to the hiring manager that you just must not be the right person for the job. And maybe you are the right person for the job, but the problem is you're just nervous. You have a lot of anxiety, and you have to work through that anxiety to be able to give an answer to let people know how great you are, and you just might not be able to do it in that moment. It just might not be your thing. And so that's the reason why you have to get the art of these communications down now, so that way when you step into the interview, everything is natural, man. Everything is natural. I'm telling you, if you just go through this number one thing alone, by the time you get to number two, you're just putting the cherry on top. There's nothing that an interviewer can throw your way that's going to be able to take you completely off balance, because you've already set up such a base for yourself that you're going to know exactly how to be able to respond to something when it comes up. And another thing that you should be doing as you perfect your transitions is sometimes just validating that you gave the right answer to the question that they asked. So sometimes what you will want to say at the end of a statement is, does that, is that a good answer to the question? Or, did I capture, the response to the question in the way that you wanted me to respond to the question? In you doing that, I know it might sound a little weird in you asking that question, because it may sound counterintuitive to the point that I was just making about, having such glaring confidence that you just know that you just killed it with the answer. Well, the confidence is going to come across mainly in, your voice, your delivery, how naturally you're able to communicate your message. When you're asking the question to just confirm that you gave a sufficient answer, it's not showing that you're lacking confidence. It's showing that you value making sure that you give the right value to the other person, right? You value giving value because you're not just answering the question to hear yourself talk. You're answering the question to make sure that the other person and the other party gets out of it what they want. And I would tell you, again, with these types of tactics, don't do it to the point where it seems contrived. Don't do it to the point where it just seems scripted. Don't sound like a robot as you're going for the interview. So certain questions, you have certain tactics, and on other questions, you have other tactics. So maybe for every question that you're asked, maybe you don't respond to every question with, yeah, great question. You got to switch it up, add some flavor to it. And for every question, maybe you don't give the response of, oh, well, did I correctly answer that question? Maybe if one question seems very basic, there's no need to throw that in there. If another question seems more complex, or maybe it seems like more of a critical question that's highly weighted into this interview process, you can tell that with this question, this is basically going to make or break your interview. Then that would be more of the question that I would have that follow-up to say, I wanted to make sure that I fully captured what your expectations were in this question. So, did I touch on everything that you were looking for in this question? Come up with your own language. Really, I'm just trying to get you to understand the elements more than the finesse and the actual words verbatim in this video. You've got to know how to perfect your transitions, because one of the biggest low points that people have in interviews is failing and being just totally sloppy and just thrown off through their transitions. And sometimes it speaks more to the outcome of the interview than the questions you gave responses to in and of itself. Because remember, 60% of all communication is nonverbal. And a lot of those nonverbal, moments that the interviewer is focusing on is how well you can respond to a question as soon as it's thrown at you. They want to see, how pressured do you feel right now? How nervous? How uncomfortable? How ignorant are you about this, right? For lack of a better word. Ignorant meaning not knowing, right? When I throw this question out, does this seem like something that you've answered a billion times over? Or does this sound like something you've never heard before in your life, which would disqualify you from being in this role? Perfect your transitions, and you're going to notice a difference in the qualities of your interview, okay? Number 3, once you've focused on getting down the questions, you've perfected your social skills and your own kind of charisma and poise on delivering and presenting yourself during the interview, because that's really what the interview is about. Properly presenting yourself as someone that can get the job done. That's it. Properly presenting yourself as someone that can get the job done. It's twofold in nature. There's a lot of people that can get the job done, but they don't properly present themselves. And there's people that are great showmen, but once it actually comes to the work part, they're not able to get it done. So it's about being able to properly present yourself as someone that can get the job done. You can do both, okay? Last, ask them questions to show that you really care, okay? Ask questions. Simple as that. We're going to keep it basic. This may sound, again, somewhat unorthodox, but guess what? You want to be a little bit unique of a person. If everybody else is just going to the interview and they're sweating bullets the whole way through about if they can even answer the questions, you're coming to the interview so prepared. You're so flawless, so robust that not only are you knocking their questions out of the park, as soon as they're done asking questions, you got a couple questions of your own. And that's going to show that you are really a extraordinary person, right? When you think about just what the word extraordinary means by definition, you are extra beyond ordinary, right? So when an ordinary person will be stumbling and fumbling through questions, you've got your stuff down pat so strong that not only are you communicating that you can give value to them, you're showing that you have enough thought and consideration that you want to ask questions about maybe things that they didn't even think to ask you, just to show how much you care about getting that job, right? So you can just put it out like that. I'm really passionate about delivering massive value to this position. I've been doing this role for 5 years. I ultimately want to accomplish this in my life. And I really want to prove that I'm the right candidate for this position. So one of the questions that I had about this role was A, B, and C. Now, when it comes to questions about the role, there's certain questions that are appropriate to ask, and there are certain questions that are inappropriate to ask, okay? Some of the inappropriate questions to ask are more so based around compensation. It's more so based around, just different perks and things like that. If they're going to compensate you, they're going to present you with an offer, and that would be a more appropriate time to have a discussion about your compensation package, okay? During the interview, they're still just trying to decide if they like you enough to hire you on in the first place. So I would structure a lot of the questions that I had about the role itself, working in the role, okay? Your questions should be a reaffirmation that you want to be as effective in the role as possible. So start thinking about, if I really wanted to be able to be the perfect employee in this position, what would I really need to know, right? Start thinking about that. If I was the perfect employee in this role, what would I need to know, and ask questions on that basis. Don't ask questions about the salary. Don't ask questions about this and that. Don't ask questions about if you'll be able to, take 2 or 3 hour lunches because you want to go and hang out with this person, hang out with that person. Don't ask those questions on an interview. Keep it focused in the interview on the value that you can deliver to them. And when it comes to any other thing regarding compensation or other things, wait until the offer is presented. All right? So that does it for this video. These are the top 3 things that you need to focus on to be able to dominate the interview. And guess what? I got a special gift for you. I've put together a step-by-step roadmap on how to get a better job within the next 90 days, right? So even if you're watching this video and you don't already have an interview lined up, but you're trying to get prepared because you want to have an interview lined up, click the link below because I'm going to show you how to be able to get a better paying job within the next 90 days. I'm going to show you from start to finish what you should focus on when it comes to what to put on your resume, what to say during the interview, how to be able to reach out to the hiring manager before the interview, after the interview, right? Maybe you're going to go to a networking mixer to even apply for a job in the first place. Some of the best ways that you go about getting jobs. These are all very important things that you need to know, and they only matter more the better your job is going to get. If you're just applying to a run-of-the-mill everyday job where you're just pushing a button somewhere, you don't need to know all these skills. But if you're trying to apply for a job where you're actually walking away with real money, then these skills mean everything, okay? So click the link to be able to get access to that, okay? How to get a better job within the next 90 days. Make sure you guys share this video. Be your brother's keeper. Share this message with the world, and I'll see you guys on the next video. Take care.